Hi, everybody. We're going live. How's everybody? I hope you're doing well this Saturday afternoon. It's very rainy here in the Northeast. And I'm here joined by my coach, Coach Paul, deaf runner here on YouTube.
Hey everybody, how are you doing?
And we are going to talk taper because I'm on my taper week. And also, oops, I pushed something. Okay. And also, sorry for that. And also, we're talking about race course strategies so that I am. My brother's here. Look at that.
Oh,
Hola,
cool. Victor,
Benito.
nice to meet you.
He's been on our lives before. Yeah.
Yeah, I do recall that actually. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. Very cool. Okay, so why don't you introduce yourself, Paul, for everybody who's been like under a rock,
Yeah,
don't know
sure.
you.
So my name's Paul. I am known as Dev Runner on YouTube, on Instagram. Those are really the only two places I really do anything anymore. But even
Me
though
too.
I've got like a Twitter account, I never use it. Um, but yeah, I'm an endurance runner who got certified as a coach. Uh, Now it's over 2 years ago, but I've been kind of coaching people, you know, pretty successfully. Good track record overall, I guess, for about 5 years. But I wanted to get the certification just to make sure that the information that I had gained just through experience was, scientifically sound. And so I got the certification, and I've been incredibly pleased to have clients like Suzie, who is such a go-getter and such a
Oh,
great runner and just a great person in general. So I'm happy to be here
thank
today.
you. Thank you. I was actually talking about this the other day with my Patreons that I don't consider myself talented because I just put in the work. I think others might have seen better, like more of an improvement with how much I think I work towards, getting faster, which is, it's my thing. It's not for everybody. Some people just want to finish the races or they want to run a lot of races.
Well, exactly.
I
I think,
just, I want to make the ones that I run count. So, yeah.
yeah, I mean, Suzie, there's a couple of ways to look at it. The first thing I want to say is anybody who runs in any capacity, if you're just out there to try to finish, to cross that finish line, if and speed is not your concern at all, you're still a runner. You're still in with the in crowd. So, you don't have to be competitive either with yourself or other people in order to consider yourself a runner. So, proudly label yourself as a runner. If you get out there and you do the run walk thing, whatever you do, you're a runner. And, if you decide that you want to get better at it, not necessarily more, competitive, like I said, but you just want to learn how to do it better, put in less effort and be more efficient at what you
Efficient,
do,
right?
yeah, then consider a coach. It doesn't have to be me. The coach client relationship is a very personal thing. You have to find somebody who gels with you. And I'm not going to go into a whole sales pitch, but the other side of what you just said, Suzie, that really matters to me as a coach. Please excuse my dog; he's making a ton of noise behind me. Um, Susie, you should consider yourself very talented as a runner because not just because you're increasing in your speed and your abilities, but because you have your talent right now that I see. You're getting incredibly fast. So there is a talent there. There's like an inborn physical talent that you were born with. The heart, the lung capacity, the ability to build your musculature to handle this. But that's the big thing is your ability to handle the load is a huge talent. And that
That is
varies
true.
greatly from person to person. There are people who can go out there and grind 140-mile weeks, and that's a huge talent. You know what I mean? Like if everybody always thinks of like the guy who can sprint the fastest, the guy who can come off the line the fastest and maintain whatever their miles per hour is. That's not the only talent. It's the ability to grind. If you have the physical ability to put your body through that kind of abuse and come back for more, that's kind of where I fit in. That's like where my ability is. I'm not naturally fast at all, but I have the ability to grind out tons of miles. I've without naming names, I don't want to name drop, but they're right here in my little town here in North Carolina. There is an ex-Olympian who is now a coach. Very talented guy. Very talented guy. Obviously, he's an Olympian. He ran the steeplechase, and he is naturally so freaking fast. It's when you watch him go around the track, it's just scary. It's just scary. And he never trains more. He's 40 years old already, but he's still lightning fast. And he never trains more than 70 miles a week. And
Oh, wow.
there was a point where he and I were talking back and forth, me possibly becoming a client of his. And he was like, marathon? No, I can get you down to a 2:45 marathon or faster, but I never want you running more than 75 miles a week. And I tried out what he was recommending for a little while. Tons of high-end speed work, but not a lot of miles, obviously, compared to what I'm used to.
Right.
75 miles a week is still a lot of miles. But I found through my own experimentation that will get me the kind of speed I need for 5Ks, 10Ks, even up to the half marathon. But for me to get significantly faster at the marathon distance, I just have my physiology. I have to grind out 90, 100, 110 miles a week when I'm peaking, or I don't. It just
Right.
That's just the way my body is. So
Right.
there are different forms of talent in running. So I guess this is my ultimate point.
Let's answer some of the questions, because we have some comments. So Janet Paul, she's saying hi, Susie. Hi,
Hey,
Coach Paul.
Janet.
Hi, Janet.
Good to see you again,
Carol is
Janet.
here. Hi,
Hey,
Carol.
Carol.
And then my brother saying, I like, well, that's a typo. I like your
Oh,
guitar collection.
oh, thank you, thank you. Yeah, check this out. Let's see if
He
it's.
actually told me, this is my fault. He told me a while ago. He said, "You
There's
need
a.
to tell Paul that his guitar collection is awesome." And I forgot to tell you. This was like maybe last year. So,
Okay, yeah, yeah. I just in the last probably less than a year started hanging them on the wall. I was like, I was sick of seeing the same old posters on the wall, so I decided to go for it.
it's a good amount of dough
Yeah,
also, because
but
they're
this
not cheap.
yeah, but this collection has taken 30 some odd years to build, so
Oh, I'm not. Everybody spends their money the way
yeah.
they want to. But I'm just saying they're little jewels.
Oh
So it's
yeah, I
good to
mean
have
they're
them.
they're art. They're art just as much as
Yeah.
they are instruments. So
Yeah. Very cool. So let's start digging into, because I have my handy dandy notebook. So I'm going to take
okay, cool.
notes.
Yeah, cool.
Okay,
So
taper. We're in taper.
so
We've
I
been in
was
taper
just
for a week.
yeah. So yeah, you are 2 weeks deep into the taper already with one more to go.
Yeah.
And I was thinking about what we were going to talk about today, and it'll probably be a hodgepodge of different pieces of advice that are specific to the taper mode, the taper section of any good training cycle. But I really wanted to start off, Susie, with, because behind the scenes, folks, just to give you a little glimpse behind the curtain here, I've spent the last couple of weeks probably getting on Susie's nerves fairly well because it seems like every time I'm in contact with her, it's not about, come on, you can push harder. It's about, stop running so fast. Because,
I
you
know.
know, but to kind of pull back from that, like the only reason I'm being that kind of a pain in the rear to you is because I don't want you leaving all this hard work out there on the training road. I don't want you to burn yourself out before we get to that start line. And with that said, I want to congratulate you. I want you to take a moment, Susie, before we get so laser focused on preparing for a race day. I want you to take a moment to realize that the big win is already in your back pocket. The fact that you made it through this training cycle healthy, that you've gotten so strong over the last 18 weeks, that's where the real win is. I want you to do incredibly well at Wineglass. I want that to be sort of like the icing on the cake for you. at the end of a beautiful, beautiful training cycle. But no matter what happens at Wineglass, you have to realize that you've already got the win, because the fitness that you've gained, the huge, huge gains you've made physically, and I think even your mental outlook towards training and racing has gotten so much better over the last 4 months that no matter what happens at Wineglass, whether it's the most incredible result for you or if it's just like, yeah, it just wasn't my day, or anywhere in between, the training you've done, that you've accomplished, that nobody can take away from you now, is going to launch you into your next training cycle for whatever race that much further ahead. And that's the trick. For everybody out there looking for the shortcuts, looking for the quick fixes of how to become a better runner, and you see all these influencers on Instagram and on YouTube like crazy telling you this is the trick, if you do this one thing. It's like, no, that's not the way it works. It's building one cycle on top of another, on top of another. Never allowing yourself to get injured, because that takes you away from the consistency. It's the consistency, right, not over 18 weeks. It's the consistency over years. It's unbelievable how running, almost more than any other sport, because it's such an aerobic sport and you have to build your heart's ability to move blood, and you have to build your muscles, and the mitochondria in every single muscle fiber has to proliferate. You get more of them. They become more efficient at taking the oxygen and the fuel that you give them, and it takes years, year over year over year. It's training cycle over training cycle over training cycle. Staying consistent. Don't leave months where you're not training. If you feel a minor injury coming on, having the confidence in yourself to back off the training, no matter how badly you need in your mind to keep pushing yourself. If you have the self-confidence to back off so that you don't get injured, ultimately it allows you to stay more consistent. And that's where the huge gains are made.
Right.
So with that said, yeah, let's follow wherever you want to lead, Suzie, specifically about this particular taper.
Yeah, I wanted to cover taper and then talk a little bit about the marathon itself. Yeah, because there's a lot. I mean, you sent me that video this morning, I reposted it actually on my YouTube channel.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, and I sent it. I know people who are running Wineglass, and we have a chat going on, and I sent the video to everybody because I think it's a good analysis of the actual course.
Yep.
But it's not as easy as you think it is. But let's talk taper first.
Okay, yeah, no, I definitely want to go through the specifics of race day with you, and the tactics and where to implement them at which exact places in that particular race course. But hey, there's Jess Kaplan. How's it going? Yeah, but as far as taper goes, if we're going to talk about taper, allow me to do some scrolling here. I want to make sure that I've got all my ducks in a row here.
Paul has notes.
Oh yeah, trust me. You know, the past 5 years of going through this stuff with clients, it was definitely helpful to sort of codify this into a one endless document here, seemingly endless document.
So you don't forget anything, because I think taper is the one thing that I think I have consistently done wrong. And I've never learned my lesson, so hopefully this time
yeah.
hard.
I've seen you do everything better in this training cycle, Suzie. Even over, you know, like if you compare, like, you know, the previous cycles that we've worked through together, you're so much more composed. You're so much more focused this time. And you know, all the physical training is always driven. It all starts between the ears, and you're right there. You know, like every time even this morning, you know, we were going back and forth, like, you know, we were saying, just sending some quick notes back and forth. And I was like, oh yeah, and don't forget this. And you're like, yeah, I already got that covered. Don't worry. It's like, you're like right there with me, you know, this time. So I know I have so much confidence in you this time because you're covering all your bases. But along those lines, just to kind of get the ball rolling here, the biggest thing you can do going into a taper to have like a good mental space is to know that you've done the physical work. I think if you've done the physical work, if you've been consistent, and that doesn't mean being perfect in your training cycle, it means being
But
there.
I've been pretty good too, because I've only missed 3 runs and they were small runs. I haven't missed a single long run. I
Exactly.
think, it's been a pretty good, yeah, I've been pretty
Yeah,
consistent. So
exactly. You didn't miss any of the big important workouts. You were always there. You were always ready to push hard, and that's why you're gonna just crush Wineglass. It's just a matter of holding myself back and not trying to put too much pressure on you, because that's a danger as a coach too with your clients. It's like when you know everything has gone right physically for them, it's hard not to sort of push somebody, and where they feel like, oh no, now I have to get everything perfect because even my coach thinks I'm going to get everything perfect. There's plenty of room to move. I don't want you to feel any of that kind of pressure. Because you've done the physical work so consistently and so well throughout this training cycle, I think you could afford to go into this taper in a much calmer state of mind, which is exactly where you want to be, because especially now as we're into the last week of the taper, I want to start focusing more on visualizations, on more of the mental side of the game, because there's nothing we can do now. We're within a 10-day. Anytime you get into a marathon taper, which is for less experienced runners, I like to give them a 3-week taper to really, really rest their body well, because it's newer to you. You've put your body through more than you're used to. So with newer runners, I like a 3-week taper. When you've got a few years of really hard grinding under your belt, that can come down to a 2-week taper. But when you've done all the physical preparation as you have, you can be mentally calmer, and we can focus more, especially in this last week, on visualizations, which is basically it's a daily practice, and it doesn't have to be long. It could be 10-15 minutes a day. Either first thing when you wake up, generally is a very good time to do it when you've got a quiet moment to yourself, or before you go to sleep, but before you're starting to get tired. If you can set aside some time for yourself to picture the course, know the course very well. If you don't live anywhere near the course and you haven't run it before, I want you to study that map really well, so you know where every turn is, so you know where every hill is, because that goes a long way to setting your mind at ease. You can't on a hilly course expect to, like, oh no, my coach told me, or in cases where you're training yourself, I said I was going to try to hold this pace. You're not going to hold the same exact pace when you're trying to climb a hill. And you have to, if you know where those hills are, you can plan around them. You can say to yourself, okay, this particular mile is going to take me 30 seconds longer to complete than the one before it, or the one that's coming after it when I'm moving downhill. And you don't feel like, well, I better grind myself into dust in order to hold pace. It's not appropriate. And all you're going to do, especially early in a race, if you're pushing too hard, you're going to wear yourself out, because everybody knows about that famous wall. And people hit the wall when they've underfueled, under-rested, and they've pushed too hard in the first of the race. One way to guarantee a bad race is to push too hard in the beginning. There's no such thing, I promise you. I'm a certified coach, okay, folks? I've read all the books. I know Jack Daniels' training formula inside out. I know Tim Noakes' gigantic Bible of a book inside out. There's no such thing as banking time. If you go out too hard, for every minute you think you've gained by running fast at the beginning, you're going to lose anywhere, depending on your current fitness, anywhere between 2 and 3 minutes at the end of that race. You're just shooting yourself in the foot by going out too hard. So if you know the course incredibly well, you can plan appropriately and you can relax. The second part of visualizations, beyond knowing the course, is picturing yourself in every stage of that race. when you're standing behind that start line and that music is pumping and everybody around you is just kind of like nervous and that energy is just flowing between everybody who's cramped into that corral. If you can take yourself out of that momentarily even and remind yourself of what the race plan is and don't allow yourself to just kind of, when they open that gate, when that gun goes off, everybody's going to go rushing past that start line. If you can hold yourself back and run your race, I promise you, when you get to mile 18, 20, 22, all those people who took off into the distance at the beginning, you're going to pick them off one by one. They're all going to fall behind you, I promise. So you can stay calmer when you picture yourself at every stage of the race from that beginning where you've got to hold yourself back, because not only are you caught up in the emotional excitement, but you're also feeling incredibly good. You've got all this energy saved up because you've tapered well, and going out and running a minute up to 90 seconds faster than what your race pace should be feels easy. It's so easy to fly. But if you do that, I promise you by mile 5 or mile 6 of that marathon, you're going to be thinking to yourself, uh-oh. Suddenly it doesn't feel so easy even to keep my intended pace at this point. So if you can hold back, and folks, it doesn't have to be anything as dramatic as a minute or 90 seconds faster than your intended pace. If you're outpacing what you know you're really capable of holding for 26.2 miles, even by 10, 15 seconds, you're going to pay for it. It's really, experience as a distance runner often comes with a lot of hard knocks. But Suzie is learning, she gets the fast track because she's working with a coach. I mean, a lot of times people, even when they work with a coach, they have to learn the hard way and they have to make the mistakes for themselves. But I promise you, if you can trust your coach, if you can trust your training, that last 6 to 8 miles of that marathon is going to go much smoother for you. It's not going to be pain-free. It's going to be difficult. It's going to hurt. There's no avoiding that. If you're pushing yourself, it always hurts at the end. And that's another part of the visualization as we step through the different sections of the race. Visualizing it through your own eyes. Don't picture it as from a third-person view, looking at yourself. Picture exactly as it's going to look through your own eyes at every step of the race. You know, when you're coming out of the gate, we talked about. When you're settling into your pace, somewhere around mile, I like to have people settle in. Start slow. Start slower than your race pace. Settle in, and by mile 4, 5, maybe 6, that's when I want you to hit your true race pace and try to maintain it, barring hills and that kind of thing.
Right.
But picture how it's going to feel just to be flowing. When you're like 6, 7, 8, 10 miles into your marathon, that's when your body is first going to start feeling where it's effortless, where you're just flying, where you're reaping all the rewards of the taper, of the great 18 weeks that preceded. Everything's going to feel almost effortless. And then we head into sort of when you pass the half marathon marker. For me, this sort of third stage of the race starts right around mile 15, 16 most of the time, where you start to notice that effortless feeling is beginning to slip away. And you're not in any kind of pain, but you're starting to notice that you have to work. It's not, it's no longer this effortless, beautiful, perfect stride that just takes care of itself. You're starting to have to work. And in my opinion, this is the part of the race that I enjoy the most, because this is where all of your knowledge and all of your hard training starts to pay off, because this is where you can start talking to yourself about, this is what I expected. It's not supposed to be easy. If it was easy, everybody would be doing it, and getting a new PR would just be like, okay, send me out any old day and I can get the job done. We're out here to work hard. this is where the tactics that we can talk about in just a minute have to come into play, about holding good form, about making sure that you're getting your fueling in, whether that's gels or your liquids. But being cognizant of the fact that you're going to have to work from here on out. You can expect it to start feeling worse and worse. And when we're in the first half of the race and everything was easy, you should appreciate that easiness all the more, because you know it's limited. And don't be surprised by when it gets tough, when it starts to get rough, because as Shalane Flanagan says, that's what she looks forward to. That's the part of the race that makes champions. Her super famous phrase that I love to pass on to everybody is embrace the suck. That awesome phrase started with her, and that's, she looks forward to it. She tries to get herself there as fast as she can, because she knows that's the grind of champions right there. And then when you get to sort of that 18 to 20 mile mark in the marathon, if you've fueled well, if you've tapered well, if you've been on point with holding pace and with keeping your hydration on point, you're not really going to hit a wall. It will just increase getting difficult to hold pace. But it'll take more concentration. It will take more of these visualizations that keep you in the moment. This is something I've been doing personally a lot of work on in my own training and racing in the last couple of years, is trying to stay in the exact moment that I'm in. You often hear a phrase, run the mile you're in. I like to focus that even more these days. I run the moment you're in. Oftentimes, in the back half of a marathon or the back half of any race, when it gets tough, we start to panic. What if I can't hold this pace? What if everything goes wrong? What if the last 4 months have all been for nothing? All this stuff runs through everybody's head. It doesn't matter if you're the Eliud Kipchoge or not. When it gets tough, the negative thoughts start flowing. The panic starts flowing. And you have to realize that that's, number one, natural. You're allowed to have those negative thoughts. But you should expect to have enough, what's the word I'm looking for? You should have enough presence of mind. You should have enough toughness at this point from all the grinding you've done in your training to be able to overcome it. You can be negative, but you don't have to give in to it. And that's what the whole second half, or at least the last third of a marathon, is all about, not giving into it. And of course, finding ways to distract yourself from those negative thoughts, to kind of push them out for each moment. Because like I said, everybody's got those negative thoughts, but you get better with experience at kind of pushing them away and realizing that, yeah, it's going to hurt. But as long as you've done all the work and you've fueled right, you've hydrated it right, you're not going to hit the wall. You're just going to experience more and more discomfort until you get to that finish line. That's to be expected.
I think for me, the most important thing is the feeling. Like, I never thought I could take so many gels. I could probably take more than I actually have taken in training. Like, I could, because was it the 18 miler I ran with, I think I took 1,000 calories.
Okay, good stuff. That's a lot.
It's a lot.
Yeah.
And so that was, I think it was 300 grams of carbs.
Per hour. Oh, in total you're talking about. Okay, yeah.
In total, yes. Yeah.
See, that's huge. Like, folks, you have to realize that when Suzie and I started working together for the training cycle previous to this one, Suzie was in a place where you were taking minimal fuel.
Oh, I would run 18 miles in one gel.
Yeah, and you would suffer for it, and you would see everything would fall apart because of that. And you were so scared, because I remember saying, well, the first thing we're going to have to get on, Suzie, is, increasing your ability to take in fuel. And something that a lot of runners don't realize is that your stomach, just like every other muscle in your body, is trainable. You can teach, Suzie is living proof that you can go from a stomach and a gut that really can't deal with this stuff, that gets sick and queasy feeling, to somebody who can take on 1,000 calories in an 18-mile run. That's incredible. I mean, that's more than I've ever taken in.
Remember when I tried tailwind for the first time, and I would be like, I can't do this because I would have to go back home to use the loop. I mean, It was like, I can't. Yeah. So.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, and we're probably, I don't want to put the cart before the horse, but yeah, when we start to talk about tactics on the night before the race and in race fueling and what the specifics are for what everybody should be aiming for, we'll get there. But
so let's talk about, because there's two things that you focus on a lot for TAPER.
Mm-hmm.
One thing is the beach shoes.
Oh, so okay, yeah. So
because people ask me about that all the time, about the beach shoes. Like, what's the secret?
Sure. Yeah. So let me make one last point on visualization, and then we'll move right
Okay.
on. One thing when you're doing your visualizations going into the week going into race day, besides knowing the course, besides picturing yourself at every stage of the race and knowing, yeah, it's going to hurt and you should expect that, I want you, Suzie, to pick a time. I want you to pick a time that you are going to see on that digital clock above the finish line.
I told you this the other day. I haven't told anybody else. Can I tell the story?
Absolutely. I mean, just to reiterate, though, for every runner, this is a personal choice whether you share this stuff or not. If you want to keep it private, that's cool. Just like mantras. You can share them. There's nothing wrong with sharing everything if you're that open a person. But yeah, if you need to keep this stuff secret for your own peace of mind, that's cool too. Go ahead.
So I actually texted Paul one morning and I said, I just had a dream last night and it was so vivid. And obviously, I'm sure I sleep really soundly, so I'm sure I dream a lot, but I don't remember my dreams. But this one in particular, I was running on the Stefano Street Wineglass Marathon, which I have seen. I've never been there, but I have seen in videos. And there's like, they have it like with pots and like flowers, and it's a small, like a main street with stores and everything. And the finish line is not big, but it's like there's a lot of people there. So I saw myself just running, and it was kind of cloudy, and it actually had rain. Like I pictured everything. Like I turned around and I see the finish line and I'm smiling. It's giving me the chills just think about it. And I'm smiling as I am crossing the finish line. I hear a voice saying, look at the clock. Like, look at the clock. And I look at the clock and the clock said 4:08:32.
Ooh-wee, flying.
And then I just crossed. And then I wake up. So that was, but it was like so vivid. Like I remember what I was wearing. Like, again, it was like, I felt like the cooler temperatures, like the cloudy sky.
It was a full sensory experience.
It was a full sensory thing, and it was so cool. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Like, look at the clock. You're not going to know.
That's super cool. And I'll tell you what, Suzie, if you run a 4:08:32, I'm going to...
We can do a party.
It's going to be victory dance and victory dances.
Because nothing in training actually said that I can run that type of speed.
Yeah, we still got a little work to go before we get there, I think. But however, I think it's very important, just to reiterate, to picture a specific, down to the second time that you want to cross in within the realistic realm of possibility for any particular race. The reason that's so important is because it drives you during the entire race. It's not just about, I'd like to see that and it's an arbitrary number. So long as you have trained for it, the particular number that you see in your head, it pushes you towards that goal, throughout the entire race. Like it keeps you focused when things get tough, because if you're not driving towards a specific goal, it's so much easier to just let go of everything when it gets tough. So with that said, let's talk tactics.
Okay, let's talk about the beet juice though, because again, people they're gonna see me drinking the beet juice, they're gonna ask me. So
Yeah, sure.
hopefully, so how does it work?
So,
What happens when you drink beet juice?
yeah, beet juice, because of the I want to make sure I get this right. Because of the nitrites that are naturally present in beet juice in such high concentrations, it acts like a vasodilator, which means it just naturally dilates your blood vessels. The reason that's so important is because wider blood vessels means your heart is pushing higher volume of blood to your working muscles without having to beat harder or beat faster. What that means is you're getting nutrients and most importantly, more oxygen to your working muscles with no more effort than your heart or your lungs normally have to work. So what's actually happening behind the scenes is when you drink it in, and over the course of a week, if you take in a minimum of 8 ounces of beet juice per day, 7 to 10 days rolling into race day, taking your last hit of the stuff 2 to 3 hours before the gun goes off, what's happening is you're taking in the nitrites in the beet juice, it goes through your system, gets processed, those nitrites distribute into all the liquids in your body, not just your bloodstream, but it gets into your saliva, everything. When you it's a very convoluted process, but this is how it works. When you re-swallow your spit and it goes into your gut, that's when those nitrites are getting converted into nitrates. Those nitrates then become the vasodilator, and that's where you get the benefit. So it takes a while to build it up in your system. So a minimum of 7 days beforehand is when you want to start.
Right. And this is actually I read scientific studies about it, and I mean it helps people. It doesn't help everybody to the same degree. So it's not like a science. So
Yeah,
it's not like you're going to run 5% faster if you do this. It doesn't affect everybody the same way, but it
yeah.
is
Well,
beneficial for
there
everybody.
is a direct correlation between your current physical fitness and how good an effect it has on you. Better shape you're in, the more benefit you get. So very cool. Same.
Okay.
It works. It's directly. It's apples to apples with the way super shoes work. The better shape you're in and the faster you are, the more benefit you get from it. So it's just kind of
Right.
one of
If
those
you
things.
run, and that is true because if you run too slow, the shoes are not gonna. You know, the fact that
However,
that's why with the same shoes when I'm running speed, I run faster. If I'm going at like a long run, it just makes it easier. But I don't see the full benefit. Being
exactly,
slower.
exactly. Yeah, once I get in semi decent shape, usually like when I'm halfway through a training cycle for, just to say a marathon, um, when I go out for my long runs, whether or not they are intended to be faster long runs, or even if I'm just laying way back and just this is a super easy long run, but usually about halfway through a marathon training cycle is when I will start wearing my um, super shoes exclusively for the long runs. Not so much because I want to always move fast, like I said, but because the plate and the higher quality foam that come in super shoes allow you to physically bounce back faster from those harder, longer extended workouts. Like you will notice if you start doing that for yourself, everybody. Um, if you go out for like a 20 miler in your average EVA running shoes, and then a couple of weeks later go out for that same run at the same paces with a carbon plated shoe on, the next day you're going to feel so much better than when you were wearing the average shoes. That's why older runners like myself love them so much for those harder efforts. It's not so
Me
much
too.
about the
I'm getting
speed,
old.
it's about the recovery.
Yeah.
So yeah, so that covers beet juice.
Do you want to talk
Everybody
about
will
carb
benefit.
loading? Because that's something that I
Yes, that's a
think
huge one.
I could do
Yeah.
better too.
Yeah, sure. So as far as carb loading goes, what you want to be doing starting, I like to I like to think about the preparation for a marathon 7 days out, not 24 hours before or anything like that. The old school way of carb loading, the mound of pasta, that's garbage. That's old school, utterly unscientific, and not particularly smart way to carb load. When you're about a week out, right where Susie is right now, what I would like you to do, Susie, is spend the next 3 days slightly upping the amount of protein that's in your diet. I'm not talking about pile 2 more chicken breasts onto your plate at dinner time. We're talking about, if your diet normally consists of, say, 30% proteins, let's see if we can bump that to 40-45% for days 7, 6, and 5, counting down towards race day. The reason we're doing that is just to give your body that extra little ability to make the final muscular repairs that it needs to make. If it's got more protein available, it can make those repairs more efficiently without sort of eating itself, without stealing protein from muscles that are already there. Give it the building blocks it needs. That's all that comes down to. Starting about 4 days, T- 4 days from race day, we're going to start ramping up our carb intake. Instead of carbs being like 50% of your plate, we're going to start bumping that by like 10% per day, so that by the time we are 24 hours out from the race, we're really carb heavy. And the kind of carbs that you want to be taking in when you're 4 days out, when you're 3 days out, you want them to be the complex carbs, the usual, what you're used to being preached about for just a general healthy diet. You want the greens, the dark leafy greens. You want the kales, you want the spinach, you want the collard greens, you want you name it. Make them a part of your diet. Because it will move everything through your system faster, it will give you the carb load, and those dark leafy greens have the most bang for their buck as far as vitamins and building blocks to keep your body healthy. But as we approach race day, once you get within 72 to 48 hours of race day, we're going to continue to increase the amount of carbs you're taking in, but we're going to start shifting the kind of carbs. We're going to get away from those complex carbohydrates that take a long time for your gut to break down, to get, extract the energy from, to kind of like the dream stuff, the stuff that kids love. We're going to start introducing more of the refined breads. We're going to start eating more bagels. We're going to start going after, dare I say, snack cakes, things like that.
You got me at bread.
Yeah, so the pastas are good within reason. Don't overdo it. But rice, quinoa, the kind of oats. My absolute favorite is rolled oats, whole rolled oats, because your body can break them down faster, extract the energy. Because the true point of a carb load going into a long distance race is we're trying to get those sources of food broken down into glycogen, which is your muscle source of fuel. Glycogen is stored in your muscles, your working muscles, and it's stored in your liver. As we approach, we're trying to more efficiently provide glycogens. And so if you're eating those more refined type of carbohydrates, it's just easier for your body. It expends less energy in the breakdown of that food so that it can produce more glycogen, get it stored in those muscles. Because when we hit race day, when we're standing behind the start line, we want those muscles 100% full, because it'll fill up those muscles before it starts backing it up into your liver. But it's important to get the muscles and the liver topped up, because this is something we haven't talked about before. So hopefully this kind of helps everybody. The glycogen in your muscles is going to be the source for you moving quickly. More, even though your body uses a mix of glycogen and fat as fuel sources. If you're running very slowly, if you're sort of like the ultra runner or long distance hiker, you're burning up far more fat than you are the glycogen. The ratio of fat burn to glycogen burn starts to change the closer you get to your aerobic threshold, which is kind of like your tempo pace, is the way you always see it bandied about in running circles. The harder you're burning, the more your body needs the glycogen over the fat. Your body, because your fat takes longer to break down into usable fuel for your muscles. So if you're burning hot like you are in a race, there's just not enough time to convert that fat. You'll always be using some of it, but you become far, far more dependent on that glycogen, which is why we're trying to, the closer you get to race day, we're saying, yeah, kale is very healthy for you, but we're not worried about long-term health anymore. We're worried about preparation for the start line.
For the race, right?
Exactly. So you're kind of throwing away the long-term health benefits of healthy carbs for making sure that we're really, really ready for race day. So we're going to go with the, like we said, the oats, the starchy kind of carbs and all that kind of stuff.
Pasta, bread.
Exactly.
Bagel.
The other thing I want people to keep in mind is, and when you start, I never want an athlete dieting in the last week of race day to try to get that last whatever amount of weight you think you need to lose. Those days are over. I prefer that an athlete is no longer dieting in any way right from the beginning of the 3-week taper. But if you still want to kind of play that game, the absolute cutoff is today, Suzie.
Okay.
7 days, 7 days out, there's no, the diet is over. If you are not going to get anywhere near as much benefit by being half a pound lighter as you are by being well fueled, well stocked with the glycogen. I have tons of personal experience in trying to diet right up to race day. Haven't done it in about 4 years, maybe 5 years now, because I've had firsthand experience of that. That more than anything will contribute to you hitting the wall in a marathon, trying to diet and not giving your body the fuel it needs to rebuild itself and to build up those stores of glycogen than anything else. Just now is the time to just build yourself back up in a big way 7 days leading in. As you increase your carbohydrate intake for those glycogen stores, your body will have to retain more water. So you've been working you've been working very hard on your core, and you've got a nice chiseled six-pack to show for it. However, over the next 7 days, you are going to see that well-defined six-pack is going to disappear a little bit, because in order to hang on to those sugars, they bond to water. So you're going to get a little bit puffy, a little bit puffier than you're used to seeing yourself. So.
I don't. So for me, in my case, the water and everything always goes to my hips.
Okay. Well, yeah. Whatever. Just.
I mean, I'm not saying, but to me, when I feel like I have eaten more carbohydrates or I'm carb loading for a race, it's always my legs. I feel them like swollen, like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's where the water goes. It always goes to my legs.
Yeah. Expect to go into race day feeling a little bit kind of logy, a little bit heavy, a little bit not quite as sharp as maybe you did a week or two before. It's all an illusion. Trust me. When that gun goes off, boom, you are going to be, if you've made these moves, everybody out there, if you've carb loaded and you've done your beet juice and you've gotten the proper amount of rest and you've worked consistently, not perfectly, through your training cycle, I guarantee you are more prepared than 95% of the people who are standing around you at that start line. If you can your last test is resisting taking off faster than you should when that gun goes off. If you do those things, I promise you, you will outstrip 95 out of 100 people who are there with you. It's just a matter of not sort of giving in to that, oh, but that guy's got way more expensive shoes than me. Oh, look at how cool that guy's gear is. Oh, that guy's wearing the $700 watch, and I've only got the bottom of the line watch. Trust me, just because they've got more money does not mean they've got more prep. That it doesn't mean that they have come into this race with a smarter plan than you. If you stick to these rules, you will shine, I promise. So
very cool.
Yeah. What's next?
Do you want to talk about race strategy?
Yes.
Other than
before we get into sort of like the big picture generalities that I'm going to share with everybody, yeah, one thing I want to make sure that we cover, I want to talk specifically about your race in 7 days. And I want to talk about kind of what I think, having studied that race course and studied that elevation abstract very carefully. I would like to talk about, specific to you, Suzie, the kind of paces that I think are going to serve you best. And everybody who's watching this, Suzie has no idea. She's had no preview of what I'm about to say, so we'll get the raw reaction right here. So first of all, I don't have a visual of what the elevation changes look like on screen that I can share, but generally speaking, the Wineglass Marathon is a downhill course, which is, we're not talking about bombing down a hill. We're talking about like a 1% grade down in general for the vast majority of the course. However, there are two significant, they're not even hills, but they're rises. One comes right out of the gate at the start line. The second one starts at mile 4.8 and crests right at mile 6. So
I know. This is the one that scares me.
Trust me. The details of that video that I sent to you that you shared with everybody, there's very good information in there. When we're talking about that big hill from mile 4.8 through 6, it's a hill in the sense of it's not a downhill grade like the rest of the race, but it's not a hill. The guy says it's a 1.8% rise. So you're talking about, it lasts about a little over a mile, but you have to realize that you're talking about like less than a 2% rise. It's not a big deal. Okay. It will slow you down. I would expect you to have to slow down. Like if you naturally keep pushing the same effort in that from 4.8 to 6, I expect that to slow your pace down by like 15, maybe 20 seconds a mile.
You think so?
You're not going to lose a lot there. You're really not.
Okay. I was thinking that minute is going to be 11 minute mile for sure when I was looking at it.
Yeah, I would. I'm glad you said that, because I would rather have you run it slower than faster. I'd rather have you lay back and trust the plan than burn up too much energy trying to climb that hill as fast as you can. But
especially because it's that early. So in my mind, I was like, that's an 11 minute mile hell, like that whole mile.
Yeah. So here's what I'm thinking. What I would really love to see you come out of the gate knowing that the first 3/4 of the first mile of this race is going to be a rise. I would love to see you come out not wanting to move faster than 10:30 pace. If you can give me that first mile at 10:30, I promise you things will get far better from there. Because after that first 3/4 of a mile rise, we're looking at a nice, gentle downhill slope for the next 4 miles. After that 10:30 mile, I want you to lock in as best you can to 10, anywhere between 10:10 and 10:15 pace. And locking that very specific window, especially for newer runners, is almost impossible.
And I suck at pacing. Honestly, it's my one.
Yeah,
I don't know that I will ever get it right.
no, you will. You will. No, here's just this is. I want you to think of it pacing exactly the same way that you approached your ability to take in fuel on long runs. It's trainable. The more experience you get with running a very disciplined race, the better you get at it. It's just an experience thing. That's the only way you can get good at this. That's why you can tell an elite runner to go around the 400-meter track and you can say, give me a 72, and they'll give you a 72. You know what I mean? Like, as opposed to if you give a new runner and you say, okay, give me a 100-second lap. They're going to come in anywhere from to like 130 seconds to 90 seconds. Like, they have no control. They don't know what it means. You don't have the experience. You don't know how to deal with that. You don't know what it feels like. But with experience, you get there. Let me just drop that tangent and then we'll get back to the task at hand. This is, rewatch this part of the video, Susie, because I really want you, and I'll give this to you in writing as well, but go out at 10:30, get that first mile out of the way, and then from that point all the way to mile 4.8, when you hit that big hill, I want you to try to lock in. Don't do your absolute best to not let yourself get faster than 10:10 per mile. If you can keep yourself right at 10:10, 10:15 in there, this is slower than your intended marathon pace by 10 to 15 seconds. But this is all about strategy. This is all about leaving you with enough energy to kick some ass when we get into the bad part, at the end. If you can keep yourself around 10:15, 10:10 until you hit that hill, we're losing time on what your overall goal is, goal time, but we're leaving you with juice for the end. When you get to mile 4.8 and you can see where it's starting to rise again, because it's not going to look, when you get to mile 4.8, it's not going to look like this big hill, this mountain. It's going to look like, oh, I feel that little bit of difference in my legs. It's not effortless because I'm not moving slightly downhill anymore. You're going to see a point somewhere at the bottom of a little valley where ever so slightly it's going to be an uphill instead of a downhill. That's all this is going to look like. But when you get to mile 4.8, I want you to back off, and I want you to give yourself anywhere from 10:30 miles to 11-minute mile until you get to the peak of that at mile 6. Once you hit mile 6, you're going to have like a half a mile, another half a mile where you get sort of like the downhill side of that rise.
And that concerns me too, because I can run a downhill super fast. I could probably do an 8-minute mile right there. You know?
And this is again all about discipline. Don't let yourself do it.
I know. I was looking at it. It's like, this is just like, it's maddening. I know myself. Yeah.
So allow yourself that 11-minute mile. If it feels good to run it at 10:30, then run it at 10:30. But all I want you to keep in mind is there's two important things to walk. When you're in that mile, there are two things that are important to you. Number one, don't push so hard that it feels like you're just really grinding hard. We're not trying to hold 10:10s anymore. Let that pace back off. It's the effort. Keep the effort. Keep the turnover of the legs feeling the same, even if it's shorter steps because you're climbing. Let the time go. You're gonna get it back. I promise, I promise, I promise. If you have the discipline in the first half of this race to let the time go, the back half is going to be beautiful. So when you get to the peak, right at the 6 mile mark, I want you to resume 10:10, 10:15. And when you get to the bottom of that hill, only when you get to the bottom, because this is a very important point to make. If you hold yourself back and don't go too fast on your way back down that half-mile hill, it will allow your legs to continue with the feel that you're used to, the pace, the cadence, the stride length. Only when you get to the bottom of that hill at mile 6.5 do I want you to pick it up. That's when you're allowed to hit it. It's mile 6.5. I want you to pick up the pace, and I want you from here on for the next several miles, I'm going to ask you to get on exactly 10-minute flat pace.
Okay.
And here is the beautiful part of the way the Wineglass Marathon course looks. When you get over that hump and you come down that little hill, this is, from everything I've read and everything I've listened to, this is the part of the course that everybody dreams of, because this is where it's pretty much a 2% downhill grade from miles 6.5 all the way through 19.5. There's this gigantic, perfect downhill plane where the temptation is going to be time to fly, you know, but we're way too early in the race to allow that to happen. So if you can pick yourself up from a 10:15 and get on 10 flat pace, we're going to stay on 10 flat pace all the way through the half marathon marker. At 13.1 is going to be the next sort of artificial point that I'm going to ask you to pick up the pace again, because we don't want to, over the entire length of the 26.2 miles, I want your average pace to be 10 minutes on the nose. But in order to make up for the time we've lost by running slower in the first half, only when you hit 13.1 miles, I'm going to ask you to pick up again. You know, we increased the pace at mile 6.5 through 13.1 to 10 flat. When you cross through that half marathon and you can tell yourself, I'm halfway done, we're going to pick it up some more. And you're probably going to be at that point where your legs start to tell you, okay, this isn't effortless anymore. It's going to be somewhere right around there. Hopefully it's a couple of miles down the road, but it's going to be somewhere around there where Paul's asking me to run faster and it's starting to hurt. I'd be perfectly happy just to try to hold 10-minute pace. But this is where the strategy comes in. I want you to pick it up. And this is where trying to get better at pacing is really important, because I want you to try to hold 9:50. Not a huge increase in pace, but trust me, when you're starting to feel tired, picking it up by even 10 seconds a mile you're going to feel it. It should not be debilitatingly hard. It shouldn't be like, if it feels at that point like, absolutely, there's no way. You know what I mean? Like, this is just too hard. Then just try to maintain 10. But if it's your day, if everything is really going well and you just, it's your day, try to get that little extra lift in each stride to where you're picking up by 10 seconds per mile. Be very careful not to go too fast, because it's going to be dangerous. If you start, if I'm live tracking you and I start to see it dip down into the 940s, into the 935s, you're going to pay for it. Trust me, that little bit of difference.
You know that on Tracer you can actually send me messages. So if you're there and you see I'm going too fast, feel free to tell me you're going too fast.
Yep, I'll be there. I'll be watching live, trust me. So, those subtleties matter, because your body responds in training to exactly what you put it through. And we've been training for high 9s, 10. Your body will know the difference between a 950 mile and a 940 mile. Because we've trained for a very specific window of pace. Even if it feels good for the first little while when you're running a 935 mile, trust me, you're not going to get away with it, because not only Are you working your muscles too hard to be able to keep it up for 13 more miles? That little extra bit of pace burns through your glycogen.
Super quick.
Yeah, it's not a one-to-one relationship. When you start to, the closer you get to threshold pace, which for most people is somewhere between your half marathon and your 10K pace, when you start to go anaerobic, that's the point. That's what threshold pace is. The rate at which you burn through your glycogen is algorithmic. It's not linear.
This.
Yep, that curve on the graph just gets steep really fast, and that's a good way to set yourself up for the wall, for hitting that wall. So if you find it hard to not go too fast, I would rather have you continue the entire race at a exact 10-minute mile pace than going too fast. You will, and keep testing it. Try little surges at this point. Pick up the pace. And by surge, I don't mean try to go significantly faster. These are very, very subtle little changes. You're talking about going 10 seconds faster over the stretch of 10 minutes. Like, that's really, really subtle. So it doesn't take a lot. It's just that extra little flick of the ankle is going to make up that extra 10 seconds. It doesn't take a huge amount of effort. But unfortunately, that extra little bit of effort, as far as energy stores go, your body knows the difference. It doesn't take a lot physically to pick up the pace, effort-wise, but your body will start burning through the fuel way too quickly if you go too far with it. So the only last thing I want to talk to you about is I want you to try to hold 950s until you get to mile 19 and a half. And I'm not just picking, this is not me doing math. There's a spot at 19 and a half miles into the Wineglass Marathon race course where there's a sharp little uphill. It's very quick. It's nothing compared to the one at miles 5 and 6. It's just this quick little, I don't even know what it is. It may be like an overpass or something.
I think
exactly.
I think it's a bridge.
Exactly. So when
like
you
a small bridge that goes, because I've seen it in the videos. There's a bridge that goes over the river. So
perfect. So that's probably exactly what it is, because there's two of them. There's one at 19 and a half and one at like 22 and a half. But when you get to that bridge, 19 and a half miles, this is going to be our next marker. I want you to, at that point, try to crank it down, and this is even more subtle. More than likely at this point, you're going to be having to play all the mental games just to hold pace. But I want that bridge for you to be a place where you have to make a mental note. And if you've got the ability to get that little bit faster, I'm talking, I never want to see you running more than faster than 9:45. But if you can crank it that tiny little bit faster, that's your maximum pace. If you can, pretty much for that last 6.5 miles of the race, crank it up that little bit, then rock on. If it's not there, more than likely, because I know myself very well, usually by the time I'm 20 miles into a race, you're just doing your best to stay at the pace you're at, and that's perfectly acceptable. If you can stay at 950, you're going over the overpass, say to yourself, can I surge? Let's see what it feels like to surge that little tiny bit. If it's just too much, just stay where you are. Just back it right back down again. And if it starts to get really tough, from that point till you cross the finish line, the only thing I want you to be thinking to yourself is, I'm trained for this. I can hold. Don't allow yourself to slow down slower than 10-minute flat miles. If it's physically undoable, your body will let you know that. If it's not your day, you'll know it, because no matter how mentally you are in the game, your body will just start slowing down. If it's because we didn't fuel well enough in the first half of the race, or whatever the case may be. But I don't want you mentally to let go of, I'm not going to let myself drift off of 10. Because that's where the win is. There's a big difference. I just proved this to myself in my long run last weekend. It wasn't a particularly fast run. I wanted a negative split it, because just to kind of set this up so people really truly understand the mental state you're in when you're mile 20 of a marathon. My long run last week was just 18 miles. It was an out and back where the first 9 miles are slightly downhill, like a 2% grade downhill, and then on the return it's a full 9 miles of uphill all the way. I was at mile 16 of that run, thinking to myself, okay, I want a negative split. So far, so good. I'm just trying to hold 740s here. I'm not like anywhere near my marathon pace. I'm just out there for an aerobic run, but I wanted a negative split it. And I'm at mile 16, and I'm thinking to myself, this is not feeling so great. I could easily let myself back off. I don't want to burn myself out too early into this training cycle. I don't want to ruin next week's training because I pushed too hard in this long run. But then a magical thing happened. I saw another runner about a quarter mile ahead of me. And I thought to myself, suddenly all that sort of mental tiredness went away. Suddenly it wasn't, can I really hold this pace? This is too tough. All that self-talk disappeared. And the only thing I was worried about is, that guy's not going to make it to the strip mall before I do. I'm going to pass that guy at all cost. And suddenly I was running 7:15 miles effortlessly, and it didn't hurt. And it's the whole reason I'm relating that story is because your mental state drives what your physical body is capable of.
Oh, 100%.
So if you do not allow yourself to drift, if you refuse to slow down slower than 10-minute miles, unless it's a truly spectacularly hard day and just not your day, you'll be able to hold it. If you've got a rule. You're never going to let yourself get slower than 10-minute flat. I've been doing a lot of talking here. I want to give you a chance to talk, and then, this point in the conversation that we're at is a perfect segue into what kind of games can you play with yourself to not allow yourself to drift, to not let go mentally. But yeah, if you've got any questions about your specific race plan, does that sound like something that's realistic to you? That's something
Yes.
that you want to do, or?
No, it sounds fantastic. We'll see if I can actually, keep up the paces towards the end. So my experience with my long runs and marathons, to me, there's 2 points. There's mile 10. I don't know for what reason, but mile 10, I always know if I'm going to be able to keep it up, to stay in a positive frame of mind. So for me, mile 10, always, it's like, I can either stay positive and know that I can do it, or start I don't know why it's mile 10, but it's always the case. It's always like, okay, if I have to distract myself, that's a bad sign. Because if I'm doing well, I go to mile 10, I don't even realize I'm going to mile 10. I'm fine. Yeah. I don't have to do, my mantras or anything like that. And then, to me, the wall is always mile 17. If I get to mile 17 and I'm fine, I don't feel that, because when I feel the wall, to me, it's super sudden. It's like I hit mile 17, even if I'm not trying not to pay attention to the miles. I know that I'm going through there because it's like seeing and stopping, like going into the mist and, fog. It's that quick. It's like crossing a line and then all of a sudden, like, crap, what just hit me?
So that brings me back, before we get into the tactics of distracting yourself, we almost jumped past a very important topic. So that mental fog is, to rewind to a few minutes back. when we were talking about carb loading. The whole point of that is to top up the glycogen in your muscles and then secondarily in your liver. To bring things around, that mental fog, we know exactly, physiologically, we know exactly what causes that. So to further differentiate why you really, really have to pay attention to topping up your glycogen stores with the carb loading and really maxing it out, like pushing yourself to the point where it's like, I don't want to eat another cookie. You know what I mean? Like in the days leading in. Do it anyway. Because your muscles, when they're in action, when they're racing, their glycogen stores primarily come from the glycogen stored in the muscles already. It's local. You know, they're using the muscle, the storage, they're using the fuel that's right there, stored within the muscles themselves. Your brain, which is driving the whole show, which burns through tons of sugar every day. I forget what the exact number is, but your brain is responsible for burning.
Just for the brain dysfunction from.
There you go. There you go.
Yeah.
So yeah, like a quarter of your energy every day goes to just powering the little computer inside between the ears. So the source of the glycogen for your mind, it's not drawing it out of the muscles, it's drawing it from your liver. That's its main source of glycogen. So and the liver will not start storing glycogen until after you've topped up your muscles. So you don't want to half-ass it when it comes to your carb load in the days leading into the race. Now in race, we have to. I feel like we'd be doing not just you, Suzie, but everybody who's watching or will watch this a huge disservice if we don't talk about fueling and hydrating in the race. You know, and this doesn't have to be super in depth, but there are certain points that have to be made. Fuel heavy early in the race, because once you fall behind, it's too late to make it up. Once you've depleted that glycogen store in your muscles, and then you think to yourself, oh, I'm starting to feel bad, and we're 14, 15 miles into the race, you cannot take enough gels or drink enough Powerade or Tailwind fast enough to get you back to where you need to be. You can recover from a bonk. It's very hard to recover from a bonk, but you cannot recover. Once you're in that hole, there's no getting back to maximal performance. That's a guarantee. You can come back from a bonk. You can bring yourself back to feeling well enough to kind of finish the race, but you're never going to reach maximum performance again. The only way around that is to make sure you are topping up your fuel from the very beginning. I recommend that people hit a gel before 10 to 15 minutes before the gun goes off. You want your first gel. If you have trained with caffeinated gels, I think it's good to take one before the gun goes off. And then you don't really want to, unless you've trained this way, I don't think it's a good idea to hit caffeine again until you're at least the halfway point of a marathon. Because one of the side effects of caffeine, besides making you more mentally aware, which is why we want to take it, is it's a diuretic. It's going to make you have to pee. If you're not used to the way it can upset your gut, it may mean a trip to the porta potty for number 2. And that's why if you haven't trained with it, don't hit caffeine for the first time on race day. But the other important thing is, because it takes time for that gel or that Tailwind liquid fuel to get into your gut, get processed through that system, be converted into glycogen, which is the only fuel that your muscles can actually use to turn into ATP to fire hard, that's a long process. So that's why you want to be topped up with your glycogen stores in the days leading into the race. But if you fuel more heavily in the first half of your marathon, you're giving your body the chance to go through the motions of converting those gels and that liquid fuel into the glycogen that can see you through miles 20 through 26.2. Plus, physiologically, as your muscles are working harder and harder, your system, your body goes into kind of not panic mode, but it realizes that your extended amounts of work are being done. So it starts shunting the blood flow away from your gut to the working muscles, because your muscles need that oxygen. It needs the fuel more than your gut does. So when you're in the back half of a marathon, if you're just starting to try to catch up on the fueling, your body, not only is it too late to top up that fuel, but your body is way less able to process it. So you want to hit the fuel heavier in the first half, the first quarter even, of when you're thinking to yourself, I'm not thirsty right now, I'm feeling plenty energetic, I don't need to pop the gel right now, I'll catch up with it later. Don't do it, don't do it. Get it down now, because your gut is primed right now to process that fuel. By the time you're 17, 18 miles in and you're bonking, your gut's already saying, I'm not working at maximum efficiency right now because we're pushing all that blood out to your muscles that are pumping so hard right now. So just stay on your schedule. Go into race day with a fueling plan. For most,
I think that, and that's also, so the fueling is kind of what I feel the most comfortable with at this point, because I have my little routine that I have used for the long runs. So I feel like I should be able to do a good job with it.
Yeah, no, I've seen you come so far. Like, I have so much confidence in your ability to deal with the fueling. It's just, that whole talk I just gave, I think, was more for the benefit of everybody watching than for you, Suzie. I think you understand this stuff.
I'm gonna have one newer gel because it has more. To me, it feels better on my stomach, and it's more like food.
Yeah,
It's
I
not
love those
jelly
things.
like all the other ones. So I'm gonna have a newer gel, 20 minutes when I'm at the ground, 20 minutes before the race, and then I'm gonna have my goo contraption, the pouch, and I'm
Yep.
gonna hit that every mile. I'm just gonna take a sip
Oh,
because
perfect.
I feel like the just the sugar and the electrolytes hitting my palate it just gives me a little bit of oomph.
Oh,
I don't
but
know.
that's a proven fact. That's a proven fact. They've even done tests with elite runners where, not talking about gels so much as liquid fuel, but this is another great tip for everybody. If you're out there and your stomach is just so upset that you can't even, you'd puke if you took something in, you can actually take a swish of like Gatorade or something, swish it around in your mouth, and then just spit it out. Don't try to swallow. But your brain gets the signal, oh, there's sugar, there's fuel in my, we're not running on empty anymore. Fuel is being introduced. There's an actual physiological trigger that takes place. You're messing with your mind. It generates signals that go to the rest of your body, your muscles and stuff, that say, okay, we're not in dire straits. We're good. We're about to get a huge rush of sugar. Let's relax. And it allows things to just kind of keep moving. You're fooling your brain. And it's proven with elite runners. They don't have to take the fuel. If you swish it around, spit it out, it's enough, at least for a short period of time, to fool your system into thinking everything's cool. Just keep going.
Good. So I'm gonna use the goose, and I'm gonna top it off. It fits 5, but if you top it off, it's 6. So there's a little bit of extra. I think it's done so that it doesn't overflow from
Yeah.
the pouch. But because of where I'm gonna have it, it's not gonna. I don't think it's gonna overflow. I have topped it off before, so I'm gonna have 6 in the pouch, and then I'm gonna have extras somewhere else. I'm gonna have extra gels. I'm gonna have the tailwind. So I'm gonna have on the 18 ounces. I'm gonna have 3 scoops. I haven't tried more than 3, so I'm gonna keep it at
Yeah.
3.
So don't go into uncharted territory. Yeah.
And then the course has 3 Humagels, and I have trained with the Humagels as well. So I'm gonna, when I hit, and it's 7.8, some other mile, and then at 19.2, I think they have the third gel. So when I hit those points, I'm gonna have the full gel. because I think again I've been doing it in training. Like the goose, I have been doing it little by little, like every mile hitting it. But the human gels, I've had the whole thing, and it's worked well. So because they're very liquidy, not like goose are more like caramel consistency.
Yeah,
Human
yeah,
gels are they just go in. It's almost like you're drinking. It's a little bit thicker than drinking, but
yeah.
so I'm
Very
just gonna
cool.
take them all like whole. So
So
the whole three.
I absolutely love the fact that the gels that you're carrying with you, that you're taking in like small quantities consistently.
So
Just make
that's
sure that you have some kind of system set up so that every half mile or every mile, every time you hear that your watch
every
go
time my
ding,
watch says 1 mile, I'm gonna take. I'll get it out of my
perfect,
pocket and
perfect,
have
because
it
that
there.
will make for a very even energy level throughout the race, and that goes a long, long way. Um,
Yeah. So
you
that's
know,
9, 10, 11, 12. That's 1,400 calories. That's a lot.
yeah,
I can
yeah,
do it because I have done 1,000 in an 18 miler. So in the 26.2, I can do 1,400 for sure.
yeah. So yeah, I think that a good just for everybody watching, a good rule of thumb in a marathon you want to take in, if you're assuming your gut is trained to do this, don't just try this all, you know, out of the blue. You want a minimum of 300 calories per hour during a marathon. So for most people that, like for myself, as an example, for me that means one gel every 25 to 30 minutes, and because I'm not just taking gels, I've got tailwind. I'm taking in 200 calories in gels and approximately 100 calories worth of tailwind, one scoop of tailwind every hour, and that gets me through, unless it's a very hot day where I'm sweating profusely. Um, Under normal conditions, like 55 degrees or lower on race day, 300 calories an hour works. But if you are able, as Suzie has come so far and she's so good at it now, if you are capable of taking in more per hour and your gut is used to it, go for it. I've seen there are some elite runners who can process up to 450 calories an hour, which blows my mind.
I
I
know.
don't I couldn't
I
do
know.
it.
Well, I don't even need, when I run a marathon, I usually spend like 2,200 calories. So 1,400, I'm telling you, there's not that much. I mean, there is,
Yeah, yeah.
um, I was just calculating. So there's like 25 average grams per, so it would be 14 times 25. I'm not good at math. Cinco veinte, I
Yeah,
have to do
yeah,
it.
250. Yeah, you put me on the spot. Yeah, I'm not that strong in the moment either. But
Okay, 4 por 5, 2, 4 por 2,
the
8,
one thing I can tell you is you're doing very well there as far as getting enough calories in.
so it's 450 grams of
So yeah, you're right there at the up.
450 grams.
You've gone from like can't handle fuel to like the upper limits. It's just amazing.
Well, hopefully things go well and I don't have to stop at the porta potties and just like, yeah.
Yeah, the
Because
only thing I would tell you, because you're carrying, you said 18 ounces of liquid with 3 scoops of tailwind, um, definitely feel free to hit that heavier in the first half. Like if you end up emptying that thing by the time you get to mile 13.1, don't sweat it. That is only going to work to your advantage.
yeah, because then it's less heavy. And it's also, I have found that I was using it on my right pocket and
Mm-hmm.
then my ankle was bothering me. And then I realized that's why it's
You're
bothering me because I have
compensating.
more weight on the right. So then I started running with it on the left. And now, then I started alternating. So yeah, the
Yeah,
sooner that I sort of go through those 18, probably
yeah.
the better.
Well, yeah, not just because of it's less to carry, but also, as we said earlier, just because the earlier you get that fuel in you, the better. Tailwind also has the huge advantage of if you get it in early, as in the first half of the marathon, when your stomach is more able to process that fuel. Tailwind, because it's a starch-based fuel, also has that slow release advantage. It's not like a Gatorade or a Powerade where it's just straight sugar. It's not actually sugar. Tailwind is actually a starch. So when it hits your gut, it slowly makes the transformation from starch into sugar, which means that fuel has a delayed delayed absorption in your small intestine. So if you take in that 3 scoops of tailwind in that 18 ounces of liquid in the first half, you will still be getting massive advantages in the second half without having to drink more. I mean, keep up with the liquids at the aid stations, but the fuel that was actually mixed into that liquid in the first half will continue to pay dividends throughout the back half. So, yeah, the earlier you hit that, the better.
Okay. Very cool. So I don't know if you have any more. We've been talking for an hour and 30 minutes.
I know, yeah. I guess we can just hit bullet points really quickly about games you can play with yourself to keep yourself distracted once you start to feel the pain, the discomfort of racing. If you feel, the first thing is surging. If you are even in the first half of the marathon and you find yourself kind of falling off your intended pace, not because you're feeling bad, but just because for whatever reason that day you're just not locked in. It just doesn't feel exactly. Sometimes the cadence just is naturally slower on that day, or it's hot, or whatever. Every couple of miles, just do a little surge. I'm not talking about break into a sprint, but pick up the pace for only like 15, 20 seconds. Pick up the pace by like 10, 15 seconds per mile. Just that little extra push. Keep it up for the 10 or 15 seconds. When you let off the gas, I promise you, your normal pace will suddenly feel easier. So that's just a little physical trick that you can do. It's just, if you're falling behind on your pace, just surge a little bit and then let off. We can go through this very quickly. Now is the time to do this work, Suzie. You're a week out. Pick your the 3 workouts from this past 18 weeks that you are most proud of. Whether because you just kicked some ass and you just outdid yourself, or because it was a really hard day, but you managed to get it done anyway. Pick your 3 favorite and memorize them. Repeat them to yourself every day, several times a day. You want to get it to the point where if a guy off the street could walk up to you and say, "What are your 3 hardest workouts in the last 18 weeks, Suzie?" You'd be able to go, blah, blah, blah. The reason you want to know that's called the mental cookie jar. Stole that from David Goggins. The reason that you want to have that is because when you are grinding hard in mile 21 and everything in you is saying, slow down, it'll be so much easier to just slow down. But you're not going to let yourself. You're going to put up with the pain. And you're going to distract yourself with these 3 hard workouts that you did. You're going to remind yourself that even though it would be easier to slow down right now, you didn't do workout A, B, or C to give up now. The reason you were grinding so hard over all 18 weeks, and especially those 3 workouts that come to mind, is because you had a dream. Is because you knew you could do this. And of course it's not going to come easy, and the suffering is in the moment, but the pride is going to last forever. But you need something to remind yourself of how hard you worked. Race day isn't about the glory of that one day. It's the icing on the cake. It's the payoff for all that hard work. And if you can readily say, this is how hard I worked. Remember how hard that day was? And I did it anyway. And I'm not going to give up on myself now. In 40 minutes, this race is going to be over. And it's going to get harder and harder and more painful over this next 40 minutes. But I'm not giving up. I'm going to keep damn grinding because I didn't do those mile splits at the track to give up now. I believed in myself, and now it's time to keep believing in myself for this last hour or so. That's why you want that mental cookie jar. Let's talk about mantras. Suzie, I want to shut up a while. You know exactly what mantras are. You tell everybody what mantras are and why you need them.
Oh, wow. So I actually talk to myself in Spanish when I'm really tired, which tends to be in the long run. I talk to myself in Spanish a lot because I can't coordinate to speak in English. My brain doesn't really have the capacity. Um, so I have been actually thinking about smiling more. You know how when you smile, even if you're in pain, you can't experience two feelings at the same time. So I've been working on it. I don't know that I can, execute on that if I'm
Hmm.
really in pain. But I've been telling myself, don't give up now. You can do it. But in Spanish, aquí no se rinde nadie. So,
Hmm.
which to me sounds, I don't know, let's grab the bull by the horns.
See, that one I like better. I want to make a little point about mantras is you want them to be positive.
Yeah,
And this sounds silly, but having a negative word in your mantra, don't don't give up. That's kind of it's based on
yeah,
negativity. Find a way to reword that because I loved your second one because it's all about positivity. And when you're trying to distract yourself from pain, that which is the whole point of a mantra, say it over and over and over again in your head till it gets silly. Because at least you're thinking about this is silly rather than thinking about oh my hamstrings are really really burning. It's like the whole point is distraction. It's about just keeping yourself distracted enough to get through what you got to get done. So um, and it should be something that's very meaningful for you. I've shared this with people on several occasions in my videos, but for me, what continues to be my favorite mantra when it gets rough out there is relax and flow. Um, I got that. It's not even original to me. I stole that from Ryan Hall, a great American marathoner. It just spoke to me when I first heard him in an interview, and he said, "This was my mantra, when I ran the American record." I was like, there was this visceral connection. It just meant to me exactly what it meant to him. So I took it and I ran with it.
yeah. I watched when Kafuzi ran his a great American YouTuber.
Mhm.
He did his personal best in Tokyo. He ran 2:59, I think it was. He had been trying to do under 3 hours for a long time.
Yep.
He said that during the race, he was actually when he started experiencing pain, he actually started like doing this breathing technique just to like kind of relax and like
Uh huh.
yeah, like and he said, I think I was just flowing. It was just like just breathing in and breathing out. He was just
Yeah.
like
He's
in a
thinking about
state
his
of like,
breaths instead of his
yeah.
legs. Yep. Exactly. Perfect. Perfect.
So I think breathing is another thing that I have been because I used to count steps and they used to distract me as well. Like when you're in pain, just count 1, 2, 3, 4, see how many you can count. And when you reach this, I don't know, 300 or something, then you start missing steps and then you start counting again from one.
Kara
Um,
Goucher. Kara Goucher. If you don't know anybody, if you don't know who Kara Goucher is, she's
I know
an
her. Yeah, I have
incredible
a few
American
episodes.
distance runner. That's what she used to do. She would count forever. She would go through the entire race just counting.
I have a friend who actually counts people she passes, like when she's
Oh
in
wow,
pain, and when she's like, okay, I'm gonna push, I'm gonna count how many people I pass, and
that's
then she,
awesome.
when she has like 3 miles left, she starts counting, and she's like one, and she keeps going. She's like two, three, and then if someone passes her, she's like, okay, I'm back at two. I need to keep going, like, and then that distracts her mind.
That's
So
another
that's
great
another
tip is pick people out. You know, David Goggins calls it. He's very aggressive. Like his whole attitude towards life is very aggressive. He calls it taking souls. Um, he said like in order to distract himself from the pain of performing when he's out there running ultra marathons, 200-mile ultra marathons, his thing is he pictures somebody, he sees somebody in the distance, and it's now his mission, his sole mission is to catch them and to break their spirit. He wants to run past them and he wants to take their soul. He wants them to get that feeling of, I let somebody pass me. He gets energy from that. So
it's just that I tried doing it once in a race. I can't even remember what race it was, but I could not. Like, it kept falling back. And it's not good if you don't have the strength to do it. Like, if you can't pass people, because then you start counting, you count 2 or 3, and then you have to start discounting, and you're in the negative. It's just
yeah, exactly.
So you have to pick the right one. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I like Run Fearless. Like, like that gives me energy. Like,
Yeah,
when I'm
and it's such
running,
a
like, keep running. Like, Run Fearless. Like, don't be afraid. Just keep, just
that
run.
supremely brilliant. To come back to what we were saying earlier, run the mile you're in, run the moment you're in. If you are, this works for some people, it doesn't work for others. If you need to distract yourself when the discomfort is extreme, I don't know anybody who doesn't have to resort to distractions in the form of mantras or picking a person and trying to catch them or anything. However, if you are able to not distract yourself, but actually submerge yourself into the actual moment you're in, that, for me, works very well as too. Which is to say, if you're in the exact moment of life that you're living right now, and you're not thinking about the future, and you're not thinking about something that happened in the past, if you're actually living in this moment, that automatically dissipates fear. You can't fear what might happen 10 miles down the road if you're truly not thinking about 10 miles down the road. If you're only
Right.
thinking about, I'm supposed to be on this pace right now, and that's all that matters, the pain doesn't matter. The pain is temporary. I'm not dead. I'm not going to fall over dead in 5 minutes if I keep doing this. I'm just going to continue to feel bad. But that's not for the rest of your life, so stop worrying about it. Make peace with the suck. Just, some points in life are supposed to be suck. But luckily, right now, all we're talking about is trying to get a good performance out of a marathon. It's not something truly terrible. So just be in the moment.
I think, to me, my best races have always been when I have enjoyed them, even if I was hurting.
Mm-hmm.
Which is a weird thing to say. But you're in pain, but you're still like, I don't know, you have that presence of mind of saying, I'm doing this and it's amazing that I can do this.
Exactly.
It's just that then the miles, when you're doing that, it's like, okay, the miles are just, you're taking miles and it's not easy, but it's like, okay, it's amazing that I'm doing this. Like, I can do this.
Exactly.
So
Exactly. Yeah. And if you can
that
find
being said,
somebody,
once you're in a bad spot, it's very hard. I think you have to do everything you can not to get to the bad, because once you're in the
exactly.
hole, it's just like so hard to get yourself out of the hole.
And that's why we have to rewind to prevention is the best medicine, because if you fueled right on schedule from the beginning when you didn't think it was necessary, you're far less likely to get deep into that hole. You'll skate through. It'll be a certain amount of discomfort. I've never had a race that was pain-free, that was a piece of cake. To me, that's a good sign, because that means I was pushing myself as hard as I could. So if you're standing behind the starting line, resigned to the fact that it's going to hurt, don't go into any race hoping that it doesn't hurt. If you're resigned to the fact that the whole back half is going to be really shit, it doesn't have the ability to scare you anymore. You're going into race day thinking, yeah, okay, I can do this. It's going to hurt, but so what?
Yeah.
It takes away so much of that mental anguish.
Yeah. I have a friend actually who said she was gonna like be waiting for me at the finish line. So she's doing the half, and she's
Okay.
gonna have time to do the half start sooner. So she's gonna be able to go to the hotel, take a shower, and come back.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah. So, but she said, "I'm gonna be there. I'm gonna be there." So just thinking about that, I think is gonna help me because I know she's going to be, like it's the support from people matters too. So just having that physical, knowing that she's gonna be there.
Oh, exactly. Of course, yeah. Just having that human connection, it really
I've
is
never had
motivating.
anybody wait for me at a finish line, actually. Like I've seen my family through the course, but I've never had someone at the finish line.
Gotcha. Gotcha.
Because when I ran Atlantic City Marathon, actually, I ran with my friend Ginger, but then I get held back and she kept going. So she crossed the finish line 10 minutes before I did. But she had, during the course, she was losing because it was very windy. She was wearing a hat. She
Oh,
hit
wow.
the hat. And then she actually crossed the finish line and then she went to where she hit the hat to see if it was there. And we think either someone took it or the wind blew it.
Oh,
Um,
that's too
but
funny.
by the time she went there and came back, because I was 10 minutes behind her, I had crossed the finish line. So she wasn't there.
That's
And
too
she came
funny.
back and she was all pissed, like, my hat wasn't
Yeah, I've gotten to the point where if I take something off during the race, I've already made peace with the fact that it's gone forever. I learned that lesson last time I ran the Myrtle Beach Marathon. I was where it was really cold, at the beginning. So I had arm sleeves on. Stupid expensive, like, like top brand, paid way too much for them. And I was 11 or 12 miles in, and I could see my hotel coming up. I was running along Ocean Boulevard, and my hotel was on the left side at mile 11. And there were some bushes, and I was thinking, okay, I'm getting too hot. So I took off the arm sleeves, and there was a bush directly across the street from my hotel. So I thought this will be an easy place to retrieve them. So I actually went to the side of the road, shoved them down into the bush so that they were physically hidden from sight. Ended up dropping out of that race. But when I went back, not an hour later to get them, somebody had taken them. So
she put them in between. So when you run next to the ocean, which you do several times, you I think 2 or 3 times you're going through this section. She put the hat in between the railings next to the beach. So I
okay,
don't
yeah,
think
yeah,
it blew. I think someone took it. I think
yeah.
someone saw. Probably someone saw her putting it there and just went and took it. Yeah, it was a nice hat. So, but my friend Tristan, she's saying you can count my girls. Her daughters were waiting for us when we did.
Oh, cool.
Well, when we did both marathons, yeah, the Disney marathon. But I mean, I should, but they were waiting for her. They were
Yeah,
there
yeah,
waiting for me. I mean, they were there. I was collateral damage. So
yeah.
I just had to be there.
That's
But yeah,
funny.
it's nice to have people there.
Of
It's just
course.
that, yeah, it's the first time that someone's going to be there specifically just,
Just for you.
just see me. No, something that it's just going to take a longer shower or something. I
Oh,
can
that's
see this
funny.
happening.
Got some time to kill you.
Oh, I would claim Addie. She's my surrogate daughter too. Addie's
Oh, wow.
one of my friend Tristan's daughters. Yeah.
Okay, gotcha, gotcha.
Yeah.
Very cool. So,
Very, very cool.
yeah, I think we've hit all the big points anyway. I'm sure,
Oh, you and I are going to be talking. And I'll just, yeah, because I have the 10 miler tomorrow. It's going to have to be on the treadmill.
yeah, and just take it easy. Find something on Netflix that keeps your mind occupied and go slow.
I know Tristan. So, yeah, I'll be putting the Race Joy information at some point on my socials so people can follow me. Tristan is
Super
already
cool.
following me. It's there. It's just the bib is not. I don't have a bib assigned, but my name is in the roster.
Okay, cool, cool.
So
Yeah, I'll definitely be
I can send it
watching
to you.
every single detail.
Yeah, and then through Race Joy, you're going to be able to follow me, and you can send me messages. So Paul, if you see I'm going too fast, tell me. You can feel
Oh
free
yeah, yeah. Just that's the worst thing you could do on the day. Just don't let yourself go too fast.
because Actually, I don't even remember which race it was, but my brother was following me and he poked in and said, I think you went out too fast. So I hear this loud and clear, you know, you went out too fast.
That's funny.
Which I did. I think that was April Fool's, actually.
Oh yeah, yeah, that was a
Yeah,
rough race.
that was a very rough race. Let's see. This is we're not going to think about bad races because we're just going to
Exactly.
stay positive that
No, you've chosen a very good race for running fast. Not only is the course fast, but it's beautiful.
the weather
And
and I think the scenery. They said you know like
oh,
because the leaves
upstate New
change
York in
already.
October. Whoa, it's gorgeous up there.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. And my brother was saying because I he was texting me this morning and I said I haven't had a good race at all this year. I mean, I've had good races, but not like in terms of like really having a nice performance, not really.
Well,
And
this is about
I
to
think
change all that, so
my
get
brother was
ready.
like, "Well, statistically, this is the
You're
one that
ready.
you're gonna hit the jackpot
Yeah.
because
No,
this can't be forever statistically." At some point, and I was like,
well,
"Okay, well, yeah."
everything points to it. This was such, I'm not saying this anymore for just the hype of it, because there's nothing we can do about it. And I would tell you if we had to be cautious going into race day. But Susie, you're in a place. I've said this to you personally, but not, on a live stream or anything. You are in an enviable place right now because you just had an ideal training cycle. You're going to get pretty darn good weather. Um, just chill this week, chill, and it will all pay off on Saturday.
So one thing I want to say though, if I get to mile 19.5 and I'm feeling really good, I'm gonna go for it.
Well, let me
I'm
put it to you this
sorry.
way. What I would do is
I'm sorry, but if I feel fine, which
if
I
at
mean,
19 and a half you feel good, crank it down to like 9:45, but still stay under control. What I would say to you is this. When you hit that second, what we're at this point, we're assuming is a bridge at like mile 22 something. At that point, if you're still feeling freaking good, then all bets are off. Then go. Just go. I just, I think, in all truth, I just kind of want to put the brakes on the enthusiasm a little bit. 19 and a half miles is a little bit early to go, to truly open up, because I last thing I want to see is a beautifully executed 19 miles go to waste and then you die at like mile 23. I just
well, I'm not
don't want
gonna
to see
like go
that.
to like, but if I feel good, we'll see. But
I
if
would
you
say
see me,
incrementally pick it up just a
if you
little
see
bit.
me picking it up at the end, that's because I'm feeling. Because obviously, I'm not gonna be have a way to communicate back with
Yeah.
you.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
but if I see you picking it up at all from that point onwards, I will know you're feeling good, and it's just a matter of celebrating. So,
Hopefully, when I did my 18 miler, I felt really good at mile 18. Like I could have run a full marathon that day.
yep,
I
yep.
was,
Well,
it
and
was,
keep
and I recovered well. I wasn't tired afterwards. So if it's a good day, it could happen. It's just that it needs to be a really good day. So
yeah, and that's what this week is all about is setting you up for that really good day. It's all within your capabilities. We know the weather is going to be good. We know the course is going to be good.
but I told
Barring
you, even if it rains, as long as it's not like super windy,
exactly.
even if it rains, I've run in the rain. I've run in torrential rain. So
Yeah.
even if it rains, I can take it. Like
Yeah.
I've done the only thing I haven't run in this year is like 35-mile winds. That would totally that would
Oh
be
yeah. Yeah.
yeah.
Anything up to like 7, 8 miles an hour is like perfectly all right. As long as it's not a headwind for 26 miles. But
Which when we did Philadelphia, my brother and I, we had 35-mile winds, and the maximum temperatures that day were 16 Fahrenheit. It was
gee,
just like I
yeah,
haven't
not
been
a
that
not a
cold.
good day.
Oh, it was awful. It was so miserable. Yeah.
Yeah, you're not going to see anything like that on
No,
next
no,
Saturday.
no.
No.
But even if it rained, I would even. Yeah, I
I,
would.
I, I love a drizzly day personally when I'm running. So
I don't mind the rain at all. Like it's just, it cools you down. So the only thing is the abrasion, like you chafe weird places.
Yeah, well, yeah, that's the other bit of prevention. Yeah, you know,
I'm gonna wear
definitely.
these. I was gonna wear shorter um, shorts, but I'm gonna wear like biker shorts because I know I'm not gonna chafe if I wear just because. Yeah.
Yeah, my neighbors think I'm really weird because I'm always running around in my tights at this point. Like I've completely given up on like shorty shorts, and I wear the far too revealing half tights every day now, and just because I never have to worry about chafing anymore.
I think in Europe, most guys run on the biker shorts. I mean,
Yeah,
it's not uncommon at all. Like 90% of the guys wear biker shorts.
yeah, yeah. My neighbors down here in North Carolina in the South, they kind of still look at me silly, but they're getting used to it.
It's just, whatever, if you're comfortable in them.
Exactly.
It's in the eyes of the beholder. That's what they say, right? So,
Exactly.
okay, we've been talking almost 2 hours. I need to make dinner. So
Yeah, exactly. The
that
only
means
thing I'm
I
going to
work in
remind
that
you of,
department.
one more reminder, start your beet juice today.
Oh, yes. Yeah, yeah.
Cool.
Okay,
Yeah.
awesome.
Awesome.
Thank
You're
you.
going to do awesome. You're going to do so well. And we'll just talk so many more times between now
I
and race
know.
day, but
We're probably going to talk in the next hour.
more than likely. Cool. Well, thank you for having me. I thought it was a lot of fun, as always.
Yes. Guys, whoever's not subscribed, subscribe to Paul's channel, Step Runner. And you can go
Cool.
to his
Thank you.
website, steprunnercoaching.com,
Hey, thank you.
which should be listed in the description. So should be there.
Oh, I
If not,
appreciate
I'll
it.
put it there, but it should be there.
Cool. I appreciate that, Susie. Thank you. And everybody for watching, thank you so much.
Thank you, guys.